States is defined by our diversity, and that's what makes us unique. However, sometimes we can say that other people are treated differently than others, especially when it comes to our past history. Attempts to suppress and to censor these types of topics of education have been made throughout the United States. For example, lawmakers currently are trying to pass bills that will prohibit talks about race discrimination in the classroom, and this is just not okay. Although some people may feel that differences in race and ethnicity and Americans' history of racism is no longer a prevalent issue, discussions about race and ethnicity should not be banned from American schools because it helps us efficiently recognize the continuity of racism in American history and society, while also allowing us to recognize and celebrate our differences.
Discussing the history of race in the United States is only part of the race-related discussions held in classrooms, but it is a very important one. An infamous critical aspect of our nation's history with race is slavery. It has set the foundation of our race dynamics, and its effects still linger today. So we asked our interviewees how they feel about discussing America's history of racism, especially slavery, in classrooms.
I mean, I think it's good. It's good to talk about history. I think we need to fairly talk about history. I don't think we need to push agendas. I think the slavery thing is definitely something that was part of America, but I think the part that's missed is it was also part of the world. Slavery was part of the whole world and not just one color of people. There's all colors of people, even white people that have been slaves. I think we did a disservice to African Americans, but I think the good and the bad of slavery should be talked about as well. And I also think it's one of those things like learn from it and move on and be better. But I don't know about talking about it a ton brings us closer together.
About 4 in 10 Black Americans say that they are descendants of an enslaved person in the United States, and those are just from the Black Americans who can trace their ancestry. Such numbers demonstrate the large portion of Americans who have directly emerged from such a system. Thus, it is basically impossible to just move on from such a foundational system. We can see its effects in Black communities today. For example, many Black people that live in poor communities fall victim to stereotyping and isolation and suffer from lack of resources compared to other communities. It is unjust to brush our history of racism, especially something like slavery, as something that happened in the past, because such history directly impacts our communities today. And it's important to recognize it as such so we can directly work to improve such circumstances. Plus, it is almost impossible to learn about America's history without discussing its history of racism. Conveniently leaving that out is inaccurate and simply unfair.
Well, I have a different perspective being a history teacher and teaching social science. I think that it's obviously, I feel like it should be unavoidable that we have these conversations and teach people about our past. I think that is just literally something that we should be having in curriculum, and any conversation, especially if it's social science related, like that's just like we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't actually investigating and looking into that kind of thing. As far as when we talk about systematic racism, I have previously taught sociology before, and I think that would be really tough to not discuss, like the systems that we've put in place in society that may or may not impact people based off of their cultural background or skin color. I think that's just something that needs to be discussed in a responsible way, as long as we bring in actual verifiable primary sources or interviews, or just then we're doing a good job with that.
In order to teach truthfully, we need to teach about our history of racism carefully and use reliable sources.
In the past century, a new method of studying race has been developed called critical race theory. Essentially, what CRT is an academic concept which establishes that race is a social construct, and racism is not only embedded in people's mindsets, but also in legal and social systems. It helps us realize how institutions in our society will not solely treat people based on their merits and character. Using CRT, or critical race theory, to study in our society supports the pursuit of a fair society by efficiently recognizing injustices in our system. By identifying these issues, we can then move forward with resolving them.
Discussions about racism itself are only part of the many discussions regarding race and ethnicity in classrooms. The thing is, we're all of different races and ethnicities, and that's totally normal. We're American. But the idea that we're all one and single is just not true. Recognizing and celebrating our differences will foster unity and acceptance within students. In fact, it'll encourage us to be more open-minded when it comes to different perspectives, opinions, and lifestyles.
So I think that there's always something in certain cultures that people will appreciate. There's always, a celebration of these differences, and there's always, maybe like a dance that someone likes, or a food that someone likes of that certain culture. And then really just learning about it is probably more than enough for racism to be actually put on the back burner while they're looking at the cool things and the things that they like. Racism is more of like an afterthought when these differences are shared in a healthy, happy environment.
Race is such a huge part of American history and modern-day society. That's why it's important to educate our students on such matters and allow them to have such discussions. And plus, it's always nice to celebrate our differences.
Troublemakers.
3.
The United States is defined by its diversity, and that's what makes us unique. However, damn it! Action.
About 4 in 10 Black Americans say that they are descendants of an enslaved person in the United States. About 4 in 10 Black Americans say that they are descendants of an enslaved person in the United States. And those are just...
How do you feel about making your acting debut?